Yeah, all these years podcasting, you'd think I'd learn to turn off my phone notifications. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Plain Truth, a Holy Spirited podcast. I am Maggie Ulmer, and today it's just me. You guys, this really isn't an episode. It's more of a short message to alert you to some changes that if you've already been to our hosting platforms recently in the last day or two, you may have already noticed. When you look for the Plain Truth podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Libsyn, or the Spirit and Truth page where we're hosted on the podcasting network, we're not there. What is there is the Firebrand podcast, which is what we are becoming. So the Firebrand podcast is the official podcast of Firebrand Magazine. If you've been a listener to Plain Truth for any length of time, no doubt you have heard us talk about the Firebrand Magazine, which is great. If you aren't familiar with it, I highly recommend you go over to the website firebrandmag.com and just check it out, explore. It's wonderful. We're becoming that magazine's official podcast. So that will mean some changes, not huge changes, but a few. But before I jump into those, here is what is staying the same. Your hosts are staying the same. So the Firebrand podcast will be hosted by David F. Watson, Scott Kisker, and me, Maggie Ulmer. We will still be doing interviews with scholars, authors, and leaders in the faith. And we will still be having our for better or worse conversations, the way that the three of us have them, which can be a little wandery and all over the place. But we've always just tried to tackle topics as people who are real Christians, who don't have all the answers, and are just trying to work out theological thoughts and questions and approaches to things happening in the world as real people. So that won't change. Here are the things that will change. In addition to our sort of normal content, we'll also be adding recorded articles from Firebrand Magazine. So readings of the articles that get published every week, featured articles. So if you've never been to the magazine or you've not had time to really take a look at it, no worries. You can download an article episode and check it out on your way to work. And, that will be great. The writers who contribute to Firebrand Magazine are some of the best scholars in their field. So I'm very excited about sharing their work to a broader audience. The other thing that will change is some of the topics we tackle. Over the years, as we've recorded Plain Truth, which has been almost 6 years, there have been many, many, many things that have been left on the cutting room floor or really not even approached at all because we've just known that it wasn't the right time and there were topics that we just weren't sure how to approach sensitively or you get the picture. It's just kind of the landscape that we're all living in right now. But we've just decided that now's the time. There are a lot of questions and issues facing Christians in the world today that we all need help with, us included. And so we're going to try to tackle some of those topics. And we want to answer the question, how does one think and live Christianly in the midst of a culture that lifts up or is facing some of the things that we're all facing? So we're going to try to tackle some of those things. And, we may not do it perfectly, but we're going to try, and we're going to do our best to do it in love and in the context of the historic faith. That's our conviction. So those are basically the things I wanted to tell you. I guess if there's anything else I wanted to tell you is all of the episodes of Plain Truth will remain available to you as a Firebrand podcast subscriber. And if you are a subscriber of the Plain Truth podcast, you're already a subscriber of the Firebrand podcast. So that content is still available to you. It's not going anywhere. And that's really it, you guys. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for evolving and continuing on with us. And we will have a more in-depth conversation about all of these changes in the very first episode of the Firebrand podcast, coming to you very soon. All right, that's it. We will come back to you next time. All right, bye.